Welcome to Electrified. It's your host, Dylan Loomis. Quick shout out to my newest patron, John Yu. Thank you for choosing to support the channel. First up today, despite all of the heightened noise and negativity lately around Elon, he seems to be in good spirits. So on that note, I think it's important to spend a minute or two here asking the question, should Tesla investors be upset about this? This being Elon pooling more than 50 software engineers, mostly from the autopilot team, to help for some period of time, it's unclear how long, at Twitter. It sounds like more than 50 from Tesla, 2 from the Boring Company, and 1 from Neuralink. As you can see, it's mostly senior directors, people that Elon trusts, he knows their track record, and one name you definitely know, Ashok from the autopilot team. I did this poll on Twitter about an hour ago. We got 427 votes so far. Good news, most people are not upset about Elon doing this. However, if you look elsewhere on the internet, especially on Reddit, plenty of people are up in arms. But as always, let's just try to remove the emotion and think rationally about this for a minute. First up, Elon needs people that he can trust and people he knows are capable of executing. Elon is going to overhaul Twitter as quickly as possible. He does not have time to hire new developers and get to know them. I mean, why would he? He's already surrounded by some of the smartest minds on the planet at SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, and Boring, people that he can also trust to execute, and people, again, whose judgment Elon is familiar with already. Second, let's remember that no timeline has been given here. These engineers could be pulled over to Twitter to help for a few days or maybe even a few weeks in a part-time fashion. Are these engineers stopping cold turkey at Tesla, or are they going to work extra overtime hours on Twitter, not changing their activity at Tesla at all? I think most of us can agree the conversation would be different if these engineers were pulled for 6 days, working only extra hours for Twitter, compared to if they were pulled for 6 months and did nothing for Tesla during that time. We just don't have any of this information right now. Point number 3. For years now, Tesla employees have been working for SpaceX and vice versa. No one has really said a word about that in a negative light. Let me ask you this. Did you know the Tesla VP of Materials, Charlie Kuehman, is also a VP at SpaceX? Or how about the fact that pretty much all early power electronics for Starship came from Tesla? Or that SpaceX has provided Tesla with niche expertise in leak testing for 4680 development. This list goes on and on. And fourth, I see a lot of people saying Elon has a fiduciary responsibility to Tesla shareholders. Yes, he absolutely does, but he's not breaching that in any way. Tesla is the 6th biggest company in the world by market cap after being public for only 12 years. This pooling of engineers for a small bit of time to help get things moving at Twitter changes nothing, at least for now, when it comes to Tesla. So for what it's worth, my take on all of this, I of course do not mind at all. At the end of the day, I trust Elon to make the right choices, and it's based on his track record. Tesla has been wildly successful, and until something materially breaks at Tesla, sales collapse, margins plummet, whatever the case, I will be content as an investor. I'm excited to see changes at Twitter, and I believe all major social media platforms will have an overwhelming impact on society and our future, and there aren't many people I'd choose over Elon to do this work of overhauling Twitter. Don't forget, the efficient management of Tesla's resources is the special sauce at Tesla. Most great engineers love working on fresh, new challenges to fire up different parts of the brain, and a new quick task like this can spark creativity in new ways, and it can be very motivating. Overall, I think this news is basically a nothing burger, but we have the media making it out to be the end of the world for Tesla investors, doing whatever they can to turn people against Elon and Tesla, so I thought this bit was worth a few minutes. As always, I'm genuinely curious what you guys think, so let me know in the comments below or over on Twitter as well. I do want to say I understand how the initial knee-jerk reaction could be to be upset about this, especially if you have no interest in Twitter, minimal care for free speech, then sure, you may lean that way, but I just want to encourage everybody to zoom out and see the bigger picture, because from that perspective, this really is, again, a nothing burger. Moving on, this is also a low-key kind of exciting thing. So this Tesla shuffle continues. They're going to send around 200 factory workers from Shanghai over to Fremont to help boost production in Fremont. About 200 people will head to California on assignments that will last at least 3 months. The first workers setting off as soon as this month. These employees are mostly automation and control engineers. Here we have a great tweet from the accountant that I wanted to highlight, talking about overlooked catalyst for Tesla into 2023, energy and services margins. Q2 of this year was the first time Tesla's energy and services segments both showed positive gross margins in the same quarter. It was repeated in Q3. These segments are positioned nicely to bolster Tesla EPS next year. You're probably familiar with Tesla Energy, but when it comes to services, this is going to be service for non-warranty repairs, it's used car sales, it's insurance revenue, and it's merchandise sales. Now, I also wanted to highlight that it's clear that the services and other segment has slowly been trending up when it comes to gross margins, which of course is great. Just know that on the energy side, things have been a bit more volatile up and down. So just because these have turned profitable for now, doesn't mean they are guaranteed to stay that way into next year. Tesla Energy has been impacted more by the chip shortages than the auto business has. So if that alleviates, then Tesla should be able to ramp up Megapack production faster at the new Lathrop facility in California, which should mean good things for Tesla Energy gross margins. Next up, Holmar shared the FSD.3 release notes. This should be a pretty big step forward. Now, I'm not the person to really add a lot of value in explaining these to you. Hopefully, James Dalma will link up with Dave and tell us what's going on. But for now, I will have them on the screen so you can pause and read if you would like. As far as we can tell so far, .3 may just be for employees and a small subset of testers, so you may have to wait a little bit for a wider release of this version. Next up, Tony Seba gave us part 2 of his The Great Transformation series, so I just want to highlight a few key points. First up, Tony's cost curve prediction for the cost of EVs has been very accurate. Back when the Model S was $80,000 and one of the only EVs available, the curve predicted that by 2025, there would be an EV with 200 miles of range for under $10,000. Here we are 3 years ahead in 2022. Say hello to the Geely Geometry EX3. He shares it in the presentation, costing around $9,200 for around 200 miles, but let's do a fact check with the latest inflationary data. As far as I can tell, Geely actually stopped taking orders for this specific vehicle this year due to a lack of batteries and chips. However, this car was for sale. It cost around $10,000 and had an NEDC range of 322 kilometers or 200 miles. And if you convert that to the EPA range, that's in the neighborhood of 135 miles. But again, this cost curve had a car like that pegged for 2025, so we're still 2 to 3 years ahead. Tony also went over why right now EVs are a no-brainer for fleets. If the average EV powertrain lasts 500,000 miles, we can compare that to an ICE car that on average lasts around 150,000 miles. And yes, Tesla and GM are promising 1 million mile cars, but we need more time to see if that holds true. Either way, let's just say a fleet car travels 100,000 miles per year. Over a 5-year period, that car will have traveled 500,000 miles. So a fleet operator can choose to do that with 1 EV or 3 ICE vehicles. Again, ICE vehicle lasts 150,000 miles on average, times 3, that's around 500,000 miles. So for a fleet operator to cover 500,000 miles, they can do it with 1 EV or 3 plus ICE vehicles. Remember, the TCO, or the total cost of ownership, is going to be far more important than the upfront cost. Many consumers get this mixed up, and this is not just a one-for-one comparison. EVs are just flat out better from this perspective. And all of this is before even touching on the reduced maintenance cost of EVs. We've also seen that Amazon has basically gone all in on EVs for deliveries. Why is this? They may say publicly that they're about a greener future and a cleaner environment, but we know the real green they're actually about, as Tony mentions. This was a pretty neat stat as well. We know that Tesla's autopilot is around 9 times safer than the average human already. Autopilot travels 4.31 million miles per crash. The United States average is 484,000 miles per crash. Yes, I know this data is not perfect, but just bear with me. There are about 1.25 million deaths on the road worldwide. If the current safety level of a Tesla vehicle were to be applied, it would mean about 900,000 lives saved per year. One last point to drive home how fast these disruptions are taking place. Back in 2000, the world's first supercomputer with 1 teraflop of compute cost $46 million and was 1,600 square feet in size. Fast forward just 16 years and you can now get 8 teraflops of compute for $600 and it can fit in your hands. Many people like to talk about 10x, 50x, 100x, even 1000x. This is 653,000 times of an improvement in 16 years. So when it comes to AI and autonomy, just be ready for things to scale up very quickly. The full video is only 18 minutes long and it will be linked below. Moving on, we have an article from Reuters. This is absolutely not exclusive. There is nothing new in this article. Just to prove it, they say Tesla is aiming to start mass production of the Cybertruck at the end of 2023 and early production set to start in the middle of 2023. The rest of the article talks about how we don't know the final price and they go on to talk about the cracked windows from the unveil. They're getting pretty loose with this term. Next up, Toyota reported its quarterly financials and it seems like the decline is well underway. However, right now, Toyota has plenty of things to point the finger at. Just a couple highlights, this was the 4th consecutive quarterly profit decline. Toyota's purchasing chief said, "I don't know when the chip shortage will be resolved." Let this next part sink in. Toyota's operating profit for the quarter, $3.79 billion. Let's compare that to Tesla's operating income or operating profit for the most recent quarter, $3.688 billion. So basically the same. Now looking at Toyota's press release to see how many cars they delivered during the quarter, up top it says the second quarter, but this is the most recent quarter. They just have a different fiscal year. Scrolling down, we have vehicle sales right here. So if you come all the way across to the second quarter, the most recent quarter, this is in thousands, so 2.146 million vehicles sold in the quarter. Back to Tesla, in the most recent quarter, they did 340,800 deliveries, so Toyota delivered 6.2 times more vehicles than Tesla and had the same operating profit. This is all made worse for Toyota because the yen has been very weak relative to the dollar. So for a company like Toyota that does a lot of exports, those should in theory be worth a lot more when the yen is weak. And analysts are pointing that out, also saying the volume in the second quarter is much higher than in the first quarter. The lockdowns in China don't have any impact on this quarter. Considering these points, the absolute amount of profit in the second quarter has got to be higher than that of the first quarter. It's very unimpressive. The weak yen boosted profit by 565 billion yen or $3.8 billion in the first half of this financial year. But the gain was more than wiped out by 765 billion yen or around $5.1 billion from an increase in material costs, with a cheap local currency further inflating import costs. Realistically, Toyota will have at least another year to blame these problems on inflation, COVID, supply chain, but at some point those excuses will expire. Next up, you may have seen that George Hotz left AI, maybe just for a time. I'm not going to go over it, but I will include his blog post below. It's a pretty interesting read. It seems like he may be on a spiritual journey of sorts, which of course some of you know I love to see. And George is indeed brilliant. Sure, maybe he's polarizing, but his interviews are usually interesting at the very least. Again, I'll put this post below. Here we have Hummer choosing to license its brand to an e-bike manufacturing company. Apparently they're going to make this bike that will cost around $4,000 for law enforcement. This licensing deal is going to Fort Wayne-based Recon, one of the world's biggest manufacturers of e-bikes, and they will be for police departments and even federal agencies. Sticking with the Hummer brand, it looks like the car version is sold out for the next 2 years. The word is that over the last year, only 2,570 of these Hummer EV pickups have been produced. They did, however, reach a record in September, producing 750. So if you extrapolate that over 12 months, that's 9,000 per year when they have a backlog of around 90,000. And when it comes to the Lyriq, over a 7-month period, they've only produced around 1,700. Now, yes, they're still early in the ramp days, but everybody said that Legacy Auto would be able to pump out EVs no problem, and still, it has not been the case. I have to admit, I do really like the Cadillac Lyriq. It seems like an excellent car. Last up for today, Rivian has delayed deliveries of the longest range Max Pack variety with the quad motor. That won't happen until 2024. They are saying you should be able to get the Max Pack with a dual motor powertrain in the middle of next year. This coming from an email from Rivian to reservation holders. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like the video if you did, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.